good day, beautiful, bountiful, love and immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance because you've tuned in consciously and conscientiously to Ion Las Vegas, where we bring you some of the most remarkable people on the planet. And today, you're going to be able to span decades and listen to amazing stories of older Las Vegas and big stars and all kinds of wonderful things with one of the most interesting people you'll ever have a chance to meet. And her name is Joanie Adams, Joanie Shoofey, and we'll be with in just a moment. So right now, I just want to make mention that I am known as the ambassador of joy. Notice I didn't say the ambassador of joy. The ambassador of joy. And this show is headquartered here in Henderson, Nevada. So Henderson is really a suburb of Las Vegas. And whenever I mention the two words, Las Vegas, people's eyes open up, ears, and they lean in and say, tell me more. Well, we're going to tell you a lot more today. I want to give you 2 data points. So it's really interesting. If you take the entire population of New York City and everybody that lives around it, the entire population of Chicago and everybody that lives around it, the entire population of Los Angeles, everybody around it, and you add in the population of Florida, it doesn't equal the number of people that come to Las Vegas in a given year. 41 million people come here because this is a place of energy. Yes, there's sex and gambling, but really it's about energy and excitement and famous people. And you're about to meet a wonderfully beautiful, remarkable woman who spans decades and is going to fill us with stories that just going to curl your toes. So without further ado, I would like the world to say a big hello and then her to say a big hello, please, to wonderful Joanie. Joanie, please say hello to 520,000 people around the world.
That's really fun. Thank you.
Okay.
You look better than I do.
You're looking wonderful. So anybody who's watching will see 2 things. Number one, there are lots of pictures behind Joanie, pictures of very famous people. If we started pointing to them, you'll know who they are. And we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to tell you a couple of data points, and then I'd like Joanie to speak. So let me give you 2 interesting little things to begin with, tidbits. Number one, in 1957, so we're in the year 2026, and people might be looking at this show 100 years from now. But in the year 2026, so that's, let me see, that's 69 years ago, 1957, Joan Adams was Miss Nevada. Young, beautiful, lithe, and wonderful. And she was also second runner-up to Miss USA.
Right.
She's amazing, but it wasn't just her beauty. She was attractive to people because she was smart and funny and beautiful. What I'd like to do is tell you all that Joanie is famous for many things. One is she dated Elvis Presley. Yes, that Elvis Presley. So Joanie, without any further ado, would you like to tell people what it was like to be Miss Nevada in 1957 and to be dating Elvis Presley?
Well, when Elvis asked me out, I turned him down because it wasn't my type. And so Mr. Farrell, who owns his hair, that I was Mr. Hair, he came over there and said, you must date Elvis. You know, we'll get national publicity. And you're Mr. Hair. Please go out with Elvis. I said, I heard he likes motorcycles. So Elvis comes back over with his tail between his legs and asked me if I'd like to go riding a motorcycle. And I said yes, and they went out and rented a motorcycle and brought me a leather jacket. And we went down the strip on a motorcycle and had a flat tire. So we had to call Colonel Parker to come rescue us. And we went to Luigi's for dinner. And then he came to my house, and I didn't have one of his records. I had a big collection of records, not one of his. So the next morning on a pillow, they bring a big stack of all this.
Well, let me ask you a question. You mentioned sitting on the motorcycle, going down the strip. Was there a strip in 1957?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Strip, yeah.
But there's some
It's called the
hotel.
Las Vegas Strip.
Well, there's some hotels that exist today by name that were on the strip then.
Yes, the Flamingo, the
Caesars?
Desert Inn, Caesars, and the Sahara.
The Sahara was around in 1957,
Yeah, I was Miss Sahara.
and it's still here today.
Oh yeah, it's come back again. Yeah, I was Miss Sahara for 6 years.
Tell Barry what happened when he made a pass at you.
Well, anyway, I threw Elvis on the floor.
That's right.
You know,
Wait. What do you mean you threw Elvis on the floor?
well, when he came to my home, we were on the couch and he was making passes at me, and I told him no, 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 and he wouldn't take no for an answer. So I grabbed his shoulders and I pushed him backwards, and he hit my cheap coffee table, and hit the corner of it on his back. We thought he broke his back. He's laying on the floor of and I have to call. I said, do I call Colonel Parker or an ambulance? He said, call. I said, I'll be okay if you just let me lay here. And so all my neighbors see him coming out crippled, and I have to say nothing happened. You know, yeah.
Let's be blunt. There were millions and millions and millions of young women in America and throughout the world that would not have said no.
I know. I was never one of them. I dated a lot of people, but I said no to them.
Well, let's talk about some other people that you knew either back then or during the ensuing years.
Johnny Carson was a lot of fun.
Johnny Carson, did he play the strip?
No, oh yeah, he did. He was at the Sahara for a lot of years.
How did you get to know Johnny Carson?
Well, I worked at Sahara, so I got to know him, But then when he got divorced and I got divorced, he asked me out because we knew we'd been out to dinner with him and his wife, my husband and I, when we were married. So when they were single, he asked me out and I started dating him. And then he wanted me to throw all his parties. I had to throw parties that started at 2 in.morning because that's what time the shows end. So he said, can I borrow your beach towels? And pretty soon, can I borrow your records? Why don't we just have the party at my house? And but he was a lot of fun. He really liked me, and he went out to the St. Jude's Ranch for Children, and played with them and swung them in the swing, and he was just a nice guy.
He liked being married. He was a serial monogamist.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't married when I dated him.
No, look, I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there somebody else that you want to make mention of?
Well, I brought Tom Jones to town.
Tom Jones.
And Engelbert Humperdinck.
So Tom Jones was a big star.
Yeah.
Was that back in the 80s?
Yeah. I used to throw panties and keys on the stage. You get young girls to do that. Because he was known for. So we made him big over 1 weekend. Made a star out of him for 1 weekend. I brought the Beatles to town.
You the Beatles came?
Yes, my husband and I brought the Beatles to town through Standard.
You and your husband were impresarios. You were people who put on shows and such?
Well, he's the president of the hotel, so every show that's going to come there has to go through him.
So which hotel was he the president of?
Of the Sahara, Flamingo, International, and Hilton.
So he was the president of those hotels
Yeah.
at the time, or they were all owned by the same group?
No, Sahara was owned by Milton Perel. And Milton Perel loved me like a daughter. He used to give me a station wagon to go to Palm Springs and stay in his home. And Nat King Cole walked in the hotel, and they were going to throw him out because they don't allow blacks in the hotel at that time.
Oh my gosh! They wouldn't allow Nat King Cole.
No. Even the stars that were black that worked there had to go the back way out and stay in a trailer.
Are you serious? This was in the 60s or the 70s?
Yeah, this is in the 50s and the beginning of the 60s.
Oh my God.
Not one black had been in any hotel until I brought Nat King Cole in, because I knew him from Tahoe.
Isn't that horrible? I mean, thank God we've come a long way, haven't we?
I walked him all the way through the Sahara.
And
And
what about Sammy Davis Jr. when he was a star? Were they by
Yeah.
that time where people were able to come in and do anything they want?
Yeah, I used to play golf with Sammy Davis. He could come in the sands because of, Sinatra, But it just as far as the ice tables and the showroom.
Tell me how you caught him cheating.
I played golf with him, caught him cheating. And
Wow! How did you do?
he put an ice chest on the passenger seat, screwed it in there so nobody could move it. So he would park his cart so he couldn't see the ball. And I was in the trees so I could behind him so I could see him. And he moved his ball, because the cart was covering it up. And I told him I saw him do that. And he got down his hands and knees like a little boy. He said, "Please don't tell anybody." So I never did. I never told anybody.
Oh my gosh! I want to ask you, Joanie, when you were competing in, you were Miss Nevada and such, 1957. What was it like to be in the Miss USA pageant in that time?
It was exciting because I was from a little farm town, I was lucky to be in the 15 finalists, I felt. And once I was in the 15 finalists, that was good enough for me. And then when I made the 5 finalists, that was really, and they said I won it, except that they wouldn't let a girl from Nevada
Be Miss
be
Universe.
Miss Universe because the men are gangsters and the women are hookers, So they couldn't let me win. So they booed the winner.
Right.
When I came out on stage, they booed the winner. And the announcer said, we stopped, I didn't want that. That was terrible to me. I wouldn't want that to happen.
How did
But
you feel?
I felt sorry for the girl, because it wasn't a very nice thing to do. Even though it wasn't the girl they picked, which was me. The audience picked me and the TV audience picked me. So everybody did, but the judges couldn't let me.
So
Because
it was a very different time. Well, actually, I want to take that back. Maybe it wasn't a different time. Maybe things were rigged in a certain way.
there was a lot of gangsters here then,
So we're okay. I want to be naive.
Tony Spilaccio and that group, and Joey Cusimano, and all these people, and I got to know them all,
So there really were.
Oscar Goodwin was my attorney, and Oscar Goodwin was their attorney. He represented Joey Cusimano and
Tony Spilaccio.
Tony Spilaccio.
So I want to be a little naive for the moment, okay?
Okay.
There really were gangsters in Las Vegas in the early
Right.
days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell Barry the Tony Spilaccio story.
There were lots of mobsters here.
Tony Spilaccio was known for killing women if they got out of line, And when I met him, I walked in a bar and Oscar Goodwin was sitting there. And Oscar had to come over here and sit down. And he said, "This is Bob and Tony." And it didn't mean anything to me. And that was Tony Spilaccio, and I didn't know it. And he said, "I always wanted to meet you." He said, "I've seen you wiggle your rear end around this town for all these years, and I wanted to meet you." He's wanted to have you, that's what he said. And I said, "Nobody has me." He says, "I have anybody I want." I said, "No, with my dead body." And Oscar was kicking me under the table so hard, I finally have to get up and go find out who this is. Go to the bar and ask, and they said, "That's Tony Spilaccio." I went, "Oh, shit." Oh. So I went over there and I started to say I was sorry. I said over my dead body, but he said, "I'm sorry." He says, "I heard nothing but nice things about you, and I got out of line, and I'm sorry." And Oscar Goodwin said he's never said he's sorry in his life.
And he never apologized to a woman.
He never
except you.
apologized to a woman.
That's right.
But he did to me.
They were a different breed, weren't they?
He was always offering me a job because I'd see him sitting in a booth and I'd see a guy at the bar going, his hand in his pocket and looking at him and out, in and out. I said, "Tony, you want me to see if that guy has a gun?" He said, "Yeah." So I walked over to him. He had a blue velour jacket on. And I felt him all over. Oh, God, that feels good. And I went back. I said, "He's clean." He said, "You sure you don't want a job?" I said, "No." I go in the pizza place, and he's sitting with his head on the window. I said, get your head off that window. I said, somebody's going to shoot you just to make front page. So
when did you stop being involved with the Las Vegas scene? Was that in the 80s, 90s, or you still?
Well, I recently went to a 50 years celebration at the Hilton for Elvis.
And got table number one.
I got table number 1. Yeah.
Wow.
That was really a nice thing. My daughter and I went.
So what year was that?
It was about 2 years ago.
Just 10 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Woo!
And Bonnie came off. I mean, not Bonnie.
Gone
Oscar's
but
wife,
not forgotten.
Caroline. She was mayor then. She came off the stage, came over and gave me a big hug and a kiss. They used to come to my house to play poker. You know, Oscar and Caroline.
You held poker games at your house?
Oh yeah, I had poker games and taffy pulls and all kinds of fun things.
But did you play also? Or you just?
Oh no, I love playing. My father owned a poker room.
Your father owned a poker room?
Yeah, an illegal one. In
Illegal.
Porterville, yeah, in Porterville, California, yeah, farm town. But the chief of police played there, and all his boys, so they couldn't give me a ticket. I couldn't do anything wrong. But I would feed them through a window. You know, they'd order sandwiches and coffee, and if they use the F word, they don't get anything to eat or drink. You know, because I hated that word. So they didn't dare. I was strict, you know. And my father would say, she means it too, you know.
Yeah, at 17.
I ran that place. I waited on them. I served it. I cooked it. I cleaned up. I did everything. He had to hire 3 people when I left.
And how old were you then?
15.
And how old were you when you were Miss Nevada?
Well, I had lied about my age because I couldn't work in the hotel because I was only 18. You know, so.
Really 17.
Yeah, 17.
You had to be 21.
You had to be 21 to work anywhere in a hotel. So I went to Lake Tahoe and I asked for a job of managing a hotel. And I'd never been in a hotel. I got the job of managing State Line Country Club, which is a big hotel.
Right.
And he gave me money for a bellman and maids, and we decided to keep it all and do it ourselves. So we worked 16 hours a day and ran the hotel, and that's how I got to know all the stars because they all stayed there. You know, Jack Carson and Marlene Dietrich and all the big stars used to play at the State Line Country Club.
Marlene Dietrich played in Las Vegas?
She played at Lake Tahoe. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And
And
what
she
about the
played at the Sahara too.
what about the famous comedians like Buddy Hackett and
Oh yeah, Buddy Hack. I used to play golf with all the time. He said, "That's my wife's plane overhead." I said, "Well, let's go." You know, no, we're gonna go play in the 18 nights. So I didn't like him anymore because he should have left right then to go get his wife.
Did Bob Hope play in Las Vegas?
I met Bob Hope at the St. Jude's March. Yeah, he played. He was at charity events. I don't know if he played there.
So he didn't play the casinos. I mean,
Yeah, no.
big
He
venues.
was Night of Stars. He came, and Johnny Carson and I went over and said hello to him.
How about somebody like Joey Bishop?
Yeah, Joy Bush, of course, was there. Yeah,
Tell me about the Rat Pack.
the Rat Pack. Yeah.
So were there some nice people amongst the stars, even in the Rat Pack, or were they just?
They
not?
were all nice. You know, I played golf with all of them. I got to be a very good golfer. I drive them all. Then I outdrove Nixon, and I played golf with Nixon in an opening of a sports arena in LA. I was Miss KTTV in Los Angeles.
Wait a minute, when he was President Nixon?
Yeah. I outdrove him 50 yards.
Wow.
So I hit the front page because I outdrove him.
Like it.
And then I met him again when I was Miss Washington Redskin. You know, George Preston Marshall, who owned the Redskins, was going to run this contest all over the United States for I make a Miss Washington Redskin. Well, he saw me by the pool, And he said, that's her. That's the one. It's the girl I was. The girl looks like the girl next door.
Tell me about the Washington Redskin, how you threw the football
I used to
out.
throw the first ball out, when we come out
Start the game.
and start the game. And I could throw a bullet because I played
So which
football.
baseball team was that?
The Washington Redskin
Football.
The Washington
football team.
Football.
Football.
You threw out the football?
Yeah, that's, the
No,
football they're going to use.
Come on,
use for the
Joey.
game.
You throw the
The
football.
one they're going to use for the game. I throw it to Eddie LeBaron, the quarterback, and I go out and practice with him so I could throw a bullet. And they say, put her on the team, put her on the team,
Oh,
then-
this is too much fun. I'll tell you what, let's put a pause here because we have sponsors of the show and we wouldn't have, they help keep everything going. So we'll be right back with more Joanie. Don't go away. We have this brief message.
Hey, quick pause. If something you just heard made you stop and think, don't let that moment pass. Because that shift, that awareness, is the doorway to real joy. Barry Shore has put together a free ebook with simple, powerful strategies to help you live in joy every day. Go to barryshore.com and download your free copy now, because one small shift can change everything.
Good day. Beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking. So always looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good. Her name is Joanie, and she's been through so much because she embodies what Las Vegas is really about, a place of energy, of excitement, of unusual personalities, and she is one of them herself. And we're talking about all kinds of people from Elvis Presley to Johnny Carson to President Nixon. I'm going to ask you, wonderful Joanie, so you were involved with, obviously you knew the people at the Rat Pack and such.
Yeah.
When did somebody like Mr. Steve Wynn, when did he come to the city? I mean,
I used to ride motorcycle with Steve Wynn. He, before he opened that big hotel, we would go motorcycle riding all the time. And I wasn't anything but a motorcycle rider with him.
do you think he brought another level of sophistication to Las Vegas?
Yeah. When he built the big hotel, I stopped riding with him.
Tell me you made him come to the door. He
Yeah.
beat you.
When
Tell
he
that story.
came over to me with a motorcycle, he'd honk. I wouldn't come out. I said to my housekeeper, don't open the door. He has to come to the door. So finally, he put the brake on the motorcycle and comes and knocks on the door. I said, didn't you hear me? And I said, yeah, I heard you. I said, if I don't come to the door, people honk at me.
And when,
But then I dated him when he got divorced.
oh,
When he got divorced in L.A., we dated.
and what about that nice man that built the Venetian? What's his name? Why am I blanking out? Oh,
Kirk Coyne.
Adelson.
Kirk Coyne?
Mr. Adelson.
Oh, yeah. I know the Adelson town. They
Yeah.
also built the hospital.
Right. So when they started coming in and building, the Wynn hotels and the Venetian and things like that, that changed the entire
It did.
the landscape, because before it was, without saying it, it was a small town.
Kleenex.
When
Yeah.
you were growing up and being involved, it was almost like a small town.
It was a small town. I mean, I led 400 horses down the strip.
You did what?
Judy Bailey and I and Wayne Newton led 400 horses down the strip,
For correct.
but to raise money.
Wow. But-
Judy Bailey was my close friend. She owned the hacienda. Her husband owned the hacienda. He died, and she became president of it. First female to own a hotel. And we
You
became.
worked in your bank robbery.
And anyway, I did This Is Your Life, Judy Bailey, and got a standing ovation. It was so good. I brought in a dog that she saved and all kinds of butter. My mother brought in. It was a great show. And then, what'd you say, Mom?
Were your bank robbery in
Oh,
Georgia?
When I was Miss Sahara, I was also Miss Chamber of Commerce and Miss JC, and I traveled all over the country with all of them, 300 men and myself. But they kept taking me because I didn't fool around with any of them. The wives wanted me to go. So for 6 years, I stayed Miss Nevada. The poor Miss,
Supposed to be a
new
one-year
Miss Nevada didn't get to go in any of them because one girl went and she fooled around with some of the guys and caused a scandal.
And they fired her.
So I don't cause a scandal. I shot with 300 and dance with them, and that's it.
Bank robbery in
I
Georgia.
said we had a bank robbery in Georgia. I took 500 silver dollars there, and I hold up the teller of the bank with a scarf around my face, and they called all the publicity places, all the papers, everybody was there, and they forgot to call the police. So here comes the police with real guns out, and I've got a bandana around my mouth and a bag of money. And I said, this is just a publicity stunt. They forgot to call the police. But anyway, I threw the money down, all these silver dollars, and people stopped the cars out on the road and just left the cars in the middle of the road to run, got silver dollars.
Of course, why not?
Yeah.
When I first came to Las Vegas, I think it was 1969.
Mm-hmm.
1969, they were still giving out silver dollars.
Yeah.
And it was a different place, a different time.
It was, yeah.
People,
I love silver dollars.
The free food was abundant.
Yeah,
It was,
chuck wagons and buffets, and they were really fun.
Okay, Joanie, I'm going to ask you if you can name your two favorite people from all the people and all the years that you've been involved with Las Vegas. Who are the two people that stand out the most?
My husband, Myron Roth.
What a nice
Myron?
Yeah, my husband was my best friend for 50 some years.
Woo!
And I married him on my 80th birthday. And now I got two sons. One's a doctor and the other one's, really my son.
Okay, well, those are people that are in your family. I meant in the world of celebrity. Are there two people that stand out that you really found to be interesting, even if they're not nice, just they were really interesting?
Well, Stan Irwin used to be the entertainment director of the Sahara. And then Johnny Carson stole him away. But we became very good friends. We both had boats and we'd brace each other. And, I knew him well. He was a wonderful man. Everybody loved him.
And when Tom Jones came to Las Vegas, did he stay for a long time? In other words, he would play for weeks and weeks on end?
Well, when I went to New York, the entertainment director, Bill, what's his name? He was the best in the country. That's why Alex hired him for getting entertainment. And I went with him to New York to book. And we went to see Tom Jones. And Bill said, no, he's not ready for Vegas. So I said, stay on the phone, Bill. I said, Alex, Bill's wrong. I said, I'm going to book Tom Jones right now, And I said, I'll take over him. And I did. I took over him. I made him a star in one weekend. And then I found out his manager also managed Engelbert Humperdinck. She said, if you like Tom Jones, you'll like my other person, Engelbert Humperdinck.
So you got him in. You got Tom Jones and Engelbert.
And Engelbert, yeah.
So let me ask you, when the magic acts started coming to Las Vegas, like Siegfried and Roy and Penn and Teller, that was a change of venue. In other words, not the lounge lizards anymore. It was big time magic acts. Did that make a difference in the city?
Well, the Maharaja from India, that was a friend of mine, and he wanted to meet Siegfried and Roy and teach him how to run their tigers, So I had to go see Siegfried and Roy's show and bring the Maharaja there to meet him. And they became friends. And the Maharaja wanted me to come to India to his palace and give me a birthday party. And I said, no. I said, you don't have cakes and you don't do like we do. He said, for you, I will have a cake and I'll have presents and I'll have all the people there that will love you. He did a great job. He put the crest of the palace on the invitation, and I had 3 major generals and 2 Maharajas. Maharani, is that what they call the girl?
Yeah, Maharani.
Maharani. She made me a cake, and they melted.
You did go to India.
I went to India. Yeah, and I stayed in his house, and I stayed in his castle. And he really showed me a good time. Then he came to Vegas and asked me for 3 things. He said, I want to meet Liberace, and I want to meet
Mayhew.
Bob Mayhew, and what was the other one? Oh, I want to see Liberace's house. So lucky I knew Liberace real well.
I'm going to ask you about Liberace because he was a great showman, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And he played a great piano. He appeared at the Hilton. No, or Flamingo or the Hilton. He worked for us anyway.
Wow. That was a different time, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I used to go over to his house and to bring my mother over. She wanted to see the closet. His closet alone was a show. It was a show. Costumes were so magnificent, So Siegfried and Roy went to see that too.
Woo!
I mean, the Maharaja.
Tell me about the Maharaja on the boat with the matching colors. That's a great story.
Yeah, I took the Maharaja out of my boat, and he had the best day of his life.
It wasn't just a boat; it was 500 feet long.
I had taught him to water ski, and well, he gave me this big party, so I got him. Bob Mayhew had moved to L.A. I called him in L.A. and I said, the Maharaja could ask to see Sinatra or somebody else, but he wanted to see you. And so he flew. He canceled the meeting he had, flew in, had lunch with the Maharaja and I, and then we took him back to the airport and he flew back. Then he had his meeting. You know Bob Mayhew, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He's Howard Hughes. When I saw Howard Hughes at the Sahara.
So did you meet Howard Hughes?
Yeah, sure. He was at the Sahara playing the dice table, and he wanted to drink, But was on a roll, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he wouldn't stop the roll. Well, wouldn't stop the roll to go to the bathroom. So he stuck his foot out, and went to the bathroom right down his Levi's, and then shook it. He shook his foot, and I got away, far away. About to serve him a drink. I didn't know exactly who he was, and I didn't know big shots.
Wow, you've known so many wonderful people, but they're actually fascinating characters. So, Joanie, did you publish a book? And if not, why not?
I've got everything for a book, but I don't know anybody to write the book.
That's where we need your help.
You need to write the book and have the pictures in there, right, Marvin?
Yeah, I've got all the pictures, yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say, first of all, a huge thank you for making the time today to be with us. And there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world who've been leaning in and enjoying this. So I'm going to do something. Can I give you a big hug?
I'll give you one.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
And here's a kiss. There. Thank you so much.
And we're going to say a big blessing from Joanie and Barry. It is go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanie. Best wishes.
Thank you. We'll do this again sometime.
Bye.
Bye-bye.